and he sleeps well, well for a 36-week-old pregnancy baby, and he's doing good. My training is all screwed. I know that this will probably never be a topic that Microcosm talks about, is like having kids and how to train through like parenthood. But man, I tell you, it is tough. Like sleeping for maybe 2 hours before you wake up again, and then sleep another 2 hours and wake up again, and somehow find the ability to like run in the heat and humidity and all that. It's just crazy.
I see many people nodding as you talk about the I mean, this isn't your first go around, so at least you've got some experience there, which I'm sure helps. Well, my best advice as a non-parent is to do less running, give yourself lots of grace.
Yeah. Give Alicia lots of hugs, and soon enough, little Taylor will be perfect resistance training for the stroller.
Yeah, he's going to be good eventually. We
Yeah.
just got to go to sleep more, and then we can do anything with more sleep.
Exactly. Oh,
That's
look at that
awesome.
little guy.
It's amazing.
It's so great to see him.
Seriously. Yeah. Awesome, Drew. Well, thanks for being on. I know you haven't been on recently, but completely understand.
Yeah, Drew, what are you doing?
I swear, if everyone's okay with every now and then a screaming child in the background, I promise I'm not hurting them. They're just
Just how it goes. Well, we're so excited to see the little guy. He looks amazing. I can't wait to meet him.
Yeah, we're coming to Arkansas
Sometime
in January.
TJ's already excited for the Athens Trail Marathon.
Yeah.
I bet. Well, I'll be here. We don't travel for not just kid reasons, but COVID reasons. So whenever you guys get here, please come see us and let us see real humans.
Heck yeah, man. I think we should get you out on that Athens race course this year. What do you think?
I really want to see Drew run it.
I don't know. So there's a really interesting race in May here in Arkansas that's along the White River. It's one of those like backyard ultra endurance championship things where you run like 4 miles every hour on the hour. And I think that format is just so interesting to me. Like I've done some races for time, like 6-hour races or 8-hour races, but I've never done something like that. And so that's on my docket, I think, for May. But,
oh my God, I love this for you. And if we can get really nerdy about why, like your economy is in the perfect place to really excel at that event. Like as someone that has a super deep like aerobic and efficiency history, I think, you would get a lot of like probably long haul truckers showing up at that event, but you have like, it's not a speed event, right? Like honestly, when you look at the people who are fully optimized at these events, they're running about 10:30 or 11-minute pace per mile. Like the ideal lap time is about 48-50 minutes. And then you have like between 10 minutes to chill at the end of your lap before you start again. So it's like running slow on purpose. I think you would actually be really, really great at this event.
Yeah, we'll see.
If you do it, we'll come through.
You win or you die trying. And I know that's
Exactly.
probably not great to share with the group, but that's just ingrained in my DNA. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And it's like kind of perfect, like parenthood training, because it's just sleep deprivation and snackage.
Good. I got that down.
Yeah. We had, I don't know if she's on the call, but Sarah Strong won, like her first ever 100 miler was a backyard ultra like that. And she ended up winning. It's awesome. And she's a mom.
Yeah.
Using that mom strength. You should like, I love watching her, like when she does her layouts for like her snack planning, it's like, it has a very mom, like very prepared mom vibe to it.
That's fun.
It's so good.
It's cool. I like that. Cool.
We'll come crew. I'm so excited.
Yeah, May. What are we doing in May?
We're not doing anything in May. You could be skiing.
Yeah, we have no idea.
I don't do anything in May. Actually, I almost never do. I did race this May.
Yeah.
Last May, which I usually don't do because like in Colorado, it's still very much snowy in May. So it's like hard to feel pretty prepared for either a long or a steep race, but I was just kind of getting bored and really I love 50s and I really wanted to run a 50. So I ran a 50 in May. And that was kind of mentally, that was challenging because my longest run, I think, was just 22. I don't even know if I did 22. I think I maybe just did 20 miles. But
hey, when you've been training for long enough.
Exactly. Like I'm not
those long runs.
I'm not a super high volume long run athlete. Economy, baby.
Yeah, I actually don't like doing any training runs over 20 miles. I feel like it's too much of a mental strain at this point. You know, I've done, it's at a certain point you do so many runs that are longer than 20 miles, especially if you've raced a bunch, that it's better to have a really quality 20 miler at closer to race effort than it is to slog out like 25 or 30 milers to prepare for that long effort. I mean, that's just like a mental strain. And then you get to race day and you're not like your whole self.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I feel like that's something that is overrated in ultra training. And I think probably, even in marathon training too, it's all about spending time at your desired race intensity and getting really comfortable with that, not just slogging out miles. We have talked about this quite a bit. Yeah, interesting to think about, how that, those kind of methodology sort of starts to really play out for athletes like yourself or other athletes on the team that are pushing, like 2+ years, maybe even getting close to 3 years. Some of my athletes, lot less emphasis on that long run.
Yeah, especially like I don't race super frequently, but I've always got some sort of ultra to lean on, like, and at a certain point, your body's not really going to forget what 32 miles feels like. And you don't really need to remind it until race day.
Right. And then I could just shut down on you. It's like, I know what we're doing now. Nope.
Yeah. It's very hard to do like a quality self-supported ultra.
Yeah, that was definitely, and since we don't really have any topics for today because we're trying to keep the Monday calls more casual, take a little pressure off of us, but I like that topic introduction there because I think that it's always interesting to see, during the pandemic, so many people wanted to do those self-supported adventures. And it's just so hard to have a quality self-supported 50K or 50 miler. And so many people were like DNFing their like own designed races and that are like adventures. And that, obviously you don't want to set yourself up for failure like that.
If you get to pick where the goalpost is, you better not miss. Is kind of how I feel about that.
I get that. I don't take such a direct line on that, but I definitely, I mean, if you
design the game, you have an advantage.
Yeah.
Be a good game designer.
Right. I would agree. Set yourself up for success. It's important to kind of work through the failures, but if you're going to set yourself up to fail every time, you're going to end up being more burned out in the long run and a lot less likely to want to get the training in to do the training.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, if you're thinking about a self-supported adventure, 20 to 25 miles is always good.
Underrated or overrated self-supported adventures?
Overrated.
Underrated or overrated running vests?
Overrated.
Underrated or overrated Oreos for fuel?
Could be underrated. Depends on how hot it is. If it's a hot day, you got a dry mouth, you don't want a dry cookie.
Yeah.
Like, Bobo's bars, overrated.
Whenever I read that an athlete ate a Cliff Bar on their run, I'm just disaster.
Like, how do you do that? You must be the most hydrated in the most humid of environments.
Yeah.
To be able to get that in.
Probably be as successful trying to just like shotgun a baguette on a run.
I don't think there's much difference between the dryness of a baguette and the dryness of a Cliff Bar. Oh, I don't even like Cliff Bars, hanging out. Like I need a snack.
Exactly.
I need a pint of water. I need 32 ounces of water in order to have one Cliff Bar.
I think like a pint of like milk to dip it in.
Yeah, well, we don't drink milk.
Non-dairy milk.
Non-dairy milk. There you go.
Underrated, overrated, listening to music while running.
I don't know. That's a tough call. I think there's a time and a place. I think there's like a middle ground. Sometimes it's overrated. Like during my race this weekend, like everything was just aggravating. So like I couldn't listen to any music. It just annoyed me too much. But you know, there's definitely been times where like, you know, you really want that like music to motivate you. You need like that thing to like help you. So sometimes it can be very overrated.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be very underrated. Like a good song can totally get you out of that, like that low moment during a race. It can like pump you up, hype you up, like distract you, switch your mindset, which is really, really key. But sometimes, you know, it can just be, at least for me, just super annoying. You know, like it's not working, you know? So one of those in the middles.
Yeah. Underrated, overrated, aid station soda.
Probably underrated. I feel like that's always like a critical backup for me during races. That and the chips. Gotta have salty chips at the aid stations.
Yeah, love chips.
Really, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Underrated, overrated.
I don't like this game.
Trekking poles.
Underrated. I think poles are a complete game changer for steep races. Yeah, absolutely. And I think definitely like later into steep races too. You know, if you're running a 50K or a marathon with 3,000 or 4,000 feet of climbing, yeah, you can leave the trekking poles at home. But if you're doing a 50K with 10,000 feet of climbing, you might want to bring the trekking poles because it can really, really help. Especially, I think even more so, it's not on the rolling courses that the trekking poles are good, but it's on the courses with a lot of sustained climbing, you know, like 2,000 to 3,000 feet of vert at once, where you really are forced into like, you know, 40 to 50 to 60 plus minutes of like solid uphilling. Yeah, I think you're probably making a mistake if you don't bring the poles.
Underrated, overrated, Jim Walmsley at UTMB this year.
He's probably overrated this year. I don't think he's gonna
not cashing in that GameStop stock to bet on Jim.
I don't know. He always blows up at that race. We'll see if he can put it together. This could be his year. Looks like he's had some good training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good time on the bike trainer.
I mean, I'm always rooting for him. No, I was following his Strava. He's been crushing it in the San Juans.
Yeah. Big days.
Which is our favorite backyard training zone for
baby
UTMB.
UTMB, but at twice the altitude, 3 times the altitude.
No, they get up pretty high at UTMB.
I think get up to like not above like 11.
No, I think they get up pretty high, like
really?
12. Yeah, not 14 like at Hard Rock, but they get up high. Totally, and they have tons of vertical relief on that course.
Ooh, 14ers, so underrated or overrated?
Way overrated. Especially if you want to be good at running. If you want to be good at hiking, yeah, go and do all the 14ers you want. But if you actually want to be good at running, which makes you better at hiking and everything else, don't do them every weekend. Every few weeks is fine. Yeah, mix it up. Get some runnable training. Yeah, something that I actually find really interesting too. Some of you guys might, remember this from comments in the logs or whatnot. But if you do one really big mountain run, like on a Saturday, it's kind of beneficial to follow that up on Sunday with a more runnable run. That way you can start to work on turnover and things. If all you do is do really steep hikes and all you do is hike, you're never going to get better at running. Building that economy and things like that, not only is that better for your overall kind of aerobic capacity and your endurance, but if you don't work on turnover, you end up getting slower running up mountains. This is like a common trap that you see like athletes falling into, which is way overemphasizing like the climbs and then forgetting about like all the other running that's done during the race, especially during the flats. and on the downs where you can really make up time. Yeah, you want to be a good climber, got to run. Yeah.
Yoga,
totally.
underrated, overrated.
Probably, I don't know. And running, probably underrated, but I'm not a yoga person.
I actually
But
say overrated.
I think that the time, like, I don't know, in theory, the time spent, breathing deeply and stretching and all of that nice stuff is probably pretty good for recovery. Yeah. I wouldn't go to a hot yoga class or do something strenuous, especially on your rest day. Yeah. Well, man, we almost had a topic going and you just kept going with this underrated, overrated thing.
It's a great way to get a
do
peek
this
inside
for
the
another
mind.
40 minutes though.
I have at least
Not on a
1,000
Monday at
topics.
4:20 in the afternoon when I'm tired. Just go all day with this.
Yeah, underrated or overrated?
No. Running in poor quality air.
Ooh, overrated.
Right? Thinking that you're getting your like mental toughness flex on by going out in 130 AQI and getting that run done, getting that workout in.
Yeah. Yesterday, my strategy was to run up high to try to get above it, which was smart for the like maybe 16 minutes I did spend above it, but for the like of like a 3-hour run, I was in it and I was coughing. I paid for it later.
Yeah. How do you feel today? Have you felt any effects from that? It was like what, 130 when you went out yesterday?
Yeah, I don't, but like, do I feel proud of myself or like I made the best decision? No, I do not. Like you get away with stuff until you don't. Right? Like, and just because you got away with it one time doesn't mean you will forever or that you should ever again.
Which is like this positive the negative feedback loop that consistently happens with ultra runners.
Right. You're like, I survived. I'm going to do this 900 more times. Right, and then, that 999th time, you do get a stress fracture or you do develop like a respiratory infection, or you do have systemic inflammation to the extent that it also coincides with like stress at work, stress from training, and then you're overtrained and then you can't compete for the rest of the summer.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it could happen.
It can happen, actually. Yeah, and I would definitely recommend to people to read the newsletter this week, read anything, listen to any of our talks recently where we talked about this before, but we always advise for sensitive athletes, don't run at the AQIs.
And also like, I feel like I hate seeing the word sensitive because like, I don't identify as sensitive, but like lungs are lungs.
Sensitive lungs. Yeah. If you have history of asthma or respiratory illness.
Or if you just don't care to, screw with long-term systemic inflammation.
Yeah.
So like if you're someone if you're injury prone, if you're sickness prone, stress prone, if you're any of the prones,
tend to have weakened immune system.
Yeah, don't be a hero and like try to get your 6-mile jog in when it looks, like the bombing of Beirut outside. Like it's not worth it.
Or your workout. I mean, if it's
especially like if it's marginal, you can always reduce volume or drop strides, drop hills, drop the workout. I've had a lot of athletes text me in the past few days being like, well, should I do like a high intensity interval workout instead? Or like, should I do a really hard bike workout instead? And like, the thing is that anything you do one time won't matter at all. Like you're never going to be on the start line at UTMB and be like, oh, thank God I did that 38-minute New York Times HIIT workout. That made all the difference. Here I am so much more prepared because I did 7 minutes of throwing, my Nalgene around us weight training. If you're only going to do something one time, like I would say, don't even bother with it and just rest.
Yeah.
Like if you want to get on the bike because it's fun, like great. If you want to hop on the treadmill, also great. But like, you don't need to go try to, start doing insanity for the first time in your life ever, because the risk of injury because of new movement patterns and because of new concentrated stress far outweighs the literal net zero fitness benefit of doing a workout one time.
And we see this a lot too, sometimes with athletes who like get an injury and they want to start biking really
I
hard
see that
right away.
So like,
and it's
there's
no
like motivated athlete syndrome. Like, oh my God, every time an athlete gets hurt, they're like, all right, I want you to send me 8 weeks of the hardest bike workouts you can think of. And I'm like, okay, your body is literally like screaming uncle. The last thing we're going to do is give it intervals. Like if you are injured or you are sick and you need to take time off of running, throwing more stress at it, more different stress, like, factoring in like new movement patterns, getting on the bike and trying to make it go harder at something new is so counterproductive. Like you need to do less when you're hurt in order to heal better. Like you're never going to be able, it's a very flawed thought, like train of thought to think like, oh, I'm going to cross train myself to greatness. Like cross training can be great, but like when you're injured, you need to think about taking steps back. Like don't even think about maintenance. I think you should plan on losing a little bit of fitness and making peace with that and knowing that losing fitness is an essential part of building better fitness, more sustainable fitness later.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's always good to think about that too, in like the larger context of just holding your training loosely. All of our, as strong as we all are, we also, we all find a breaking point eventually.
Yeah. You're a person.
Yeah. And so if you're grasping really too tightly, you're having trouble, giving up a day of running because of the AQI, you're stressed about the upcoming race that you've got, it's maybe a time to step back and just kind of reevaluate things like, have I really been consistent? Why does this run feel like it matters so much in the context of 6 months of training or all of these other amazing things that I've been able to accomplish, en route to, where I am today in relation to where that, when that race is. When we start to overemphasize any one day and then have trouble making smart decisions as a result of that, and those decisions put us at greater risk of injury or greater risk of overall losing consistency in the future, because a lot of what happens with running is you don't really think that there's a problem until it's a catastrophe. And then you're out for weeks. And then you lose weeks of consistency. And when you're out for weeks, you lose fitness. When you're out for a few days because the AQI is bad in your area, you don't lose fitness. In fact, you probably benefit from that extra rest, lowering. It
takes like 2 weeks for detraining processes to happen.
Totally. And I would say, there might be a little bit of kind of like neuromuscular adaptation loss. Like initially you might feel a little rusty coming back, but really it just doesn't take that long to start to feel good again, running wise. We see athletes who have to take 5 to 7 days off to get in front of an injury and really do their due diligence not to get out there too quickly. First 2 or 3 runs, you tend to feel a little bit more sore. But after that, the body remembers that you've been kind of involved in this stuff for a while and you start to like feel better and better. And then that extra rest actually often like really helps athletes to kind of have some breakthroughs, because it's very hard to gauge when you're in kind of the throes of a big training block or summer of adventuring and racing. You sort of start to get used to feeling like a little less optimal all the time. And so it's very hard to make a real judgment call about like how important that extra rest day is every once in a while. Yeah. So, I would definitely, and I think all of these conversations kind of fit together, right? Like viewing injury, looking at days off because the air quality is bad, overemphasizing cross training when we can't run, that is just stress, right? Like Zoe said, there's no difference. It's just a different activity that's producing the stress. And when your body is overstressed and you get injured, you don't need more stress to help you feel better. So, activities that help to balance that stress out, stuff that, I kind of mentioned in last week's coaching call, things like that, walk, spending time outside, meditation.
But really, like when we say walk, we mean like, don't try to do your running volume at a walk, and like, don't try to get sporty with it. Like just be a normal person walking.
Like strolling. Yeah. I would challenge any of you guys to walk as slow as me. I think I'm the slowest walker.
I can't handle it.
Earth.
I cannot handle it.
I know how to do a recovery walk.
But he does it everywhere. Like going to the grocery store with him is excruciating.
There's no rush.
Oh my God. I swear, we're going to Strava you sometime.
2 or 3 years ago, I went back to New York City to visit my sister. She was still living there and she was in med school finishing up. And we were going out to have a beer or something. And she immediately took off walking New York City pace. And I was doing my normal pace. And she just like couldn't, like, you can't get around anywhere around here going that quick. Like I was like, this is just how fast I move. There's no rush.
It's like the vibe of like an elderly Italian on vacation is the speed that you travel at 99% of the time.
What's the sense of urgency?
I have once, like, I've actually noticed now that we live in a house with stairs, I like fully adopt like UTMB style power hiking going up the stairs, like full glute activation, firing, full steam ahead going upstairs, like hands on knees.
That's another slippery slope. I don't want to get into that. Good way to gauge your recovery though.
Yeah.
If you have any trouble getting up those stairs, let me know. You need an extra rest day.
Yeah. Yeah, actually that's something, I think that some things, like we've been talking a lot about like how athletes can start to identify for themselves, like, without getting a blood test or doing anything too fancy, like what signs are that you might need a little time off. And one of the big ones is like, when you notice you get to the top of the stairs and you're like, ugh, it's a big one.
Yeah, if you're feeling a little out of breath on those stairs, definitely a sign. Another thing sometimes is that hungriness before bed.
Mm.
It might be underfueling, which could be leading to some of that fatigue. I think like 90% of the fatigue athletes kind of report is directly correlated to not eating enough food.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, almost everyone that we send to work with a nutritionist, I think a lot of people think and or are told by culture that they need to restrict in order to be healthy or be athletes. And like, or some people don't even actually, I was talking with Megan Roche, who just did a really large study on Western states athletes, looking at restriction patterns and the differences between male and female athletes. And she found that the majority of female athletes consciously restricted food and male athletes unconsciously restricted food. Men perceived what they were doing as like healthy eating or watching what they ate, but they were actually restricting food in a way that was unhealthy and was limiting training adaptation and putting them in a calorie deficit.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting takeaway, is that like insufficient fueling can look really differently on athletes depending on how they're socialized and like what gender they're socialized as and like who they're with and like what their family context is as well.
It's very true. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I read that. Did that come out somewhere? Was that did that come out?
We did a little write-up in Trail Runner.
Yeah, too. That was definitely interesting and not surprising, because I think, a lot of the fasted running fad and things like that has really come from masked like male runners.
I mean, I'm so fascinated. Like everyone is fed loads of hot garbage by culture, and men and women are fed like a very different flavor of hot garbage. And men are like fed a lot of times this very like tech bro biohacking thing. And like, you can put whatever hat on it. Like it's an eating disorder at the end of the day for a lot of it, or it's restrictive, or it's on the disordered eating spectrum. Like, I don't care if you call it, I don't care if there's like a sticker that they put on it at Whole Foods. Paleo is just another fancy word for restrictive eating.
Yeah, I mean, you could say the same thing, that we're vegans and we're, you could consider that to be very strict. And I think, whether that borders on orthorexic behavior. Totally.
And I think that,
is a matter of how
it affects your life and your mental health.
Yeah, but how closely you hold those eating guidelines, and how you identify with it.
Yeah.
We've definitely seen people who, can't make a concession. Mm-hmm. Like you're in a situation where you can't eat something that is within your kind of dietary preferences. And so the choice is to not eat anything at all and yet to still train. And that is a choice that's a lower choice. That's not the optimal choice. There has to be some times where you have to, loosen your grip around your eating preference. Obviously if it's an allergy or something like that, that's a little bit different. But But, if the choice is to eat something or to not eat something, especially in the context of an athlete that trains, the choice is to eat something. There is no other choice. And this is definitely something that, I've dealt with in my career, and I've seen as a coach, athletes having trouble with that, especially when traveling and things like that.
Or cutting out like whole food groups unnecessarily.
Totally.
Like sugar.
Like avoiding sugar or fats.
Yeah.
Or
and we're not
carbs.
saying like only eat sugar, only eat fats, Oreos 24/7, 365. But like you're an athlete, you need to eat like an athlete. And that means eating a lot and eating in a way that just nourishes you socially, physically, like in a way that doesn't like cause psychological weight. If like, and I think this is true for like anything, like if you're training or you're eating or anything like that starts to feel like a psychological burden, that I think is worth investigating with a trained professional, because it should not feel that way.
I would agree. And it's just paramount, obviously we've talked about this many times, but it's really paramount for, your success that you avoid the same day energy deficits all the time. Yeah. And anytime that you become aware that you're not fueling enough, that you right the ship right away. Yeah. Because if you don't do that, not only does your training that week, that day, it just becomes like irrelevant almost. Like you're not going to adapt to that training. You're not going to get anything out of that work. In fact, it's going to just make you take multiple and more steps back. Those fatigue signs and things like that, are not necessarily an indication that you're having an issue with restrictive eating, because a lot of this is unconscious. But
I just say that to bring up that, like, just because you're someone that's like, oh, I don't restrict food on purpose, that doesn't mean you're in the clear, and that this definitely isn't a problem for you. Yeah. Because what the research shows is that particularly with male identifying athletes, those patterns of calorie deficits look different than they do for women. And that's the point I'm making.
I know. Yeah, totally. I think that's very clear. I know I know we coach like a ton of vegan athletes and plant-based athletes,
or just like veggie curious athletes.
And I think that's all awesome. Obviously, we're veggie eaters, but it can be very easy to get sucked into the kind of place where you feel you're getting enough because the food is really satiating. And I would just say, if you're a vegan athlete and you're struggling with your energy levels, if you're having trouble recovering and things like that, that is maybe a sign that it's a good idea to work with someone like Kylie or another professional, just to get an extra set of eyes on kind of like what you're eating, because these foods are so nutrient dense. They are also they have a very high water content. It's very easy to get satiated quickly, and then to not really be getting in the actual like caloric making your caloric needs.
Safety cookies.
Yeah. So, that's like, we always have like our safety items around the house, like we have our
safety
cookies.
Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah. Or, like the gnarly vegan meal replacement thing, like has always been a great, like,
which, to be clear, is never used to replace a
meal. It's not a meal replacement. It's an additional meal that you get to have every day. That
it's like a
really
snack
good.
that I don't think it tastes that great. I think it's acceptable.
I put mine with chocolate soy milk, and I find that extra protein is really
I have to, like, for me to make mine palatable for me, I blend in like 1/3 of a cup of almond, like 5 servings of almond butter, a banana, and milk and cocoa powder.
Wow. I love that just how it is. And I'm not even sponsored by them. So I don't make it.
Sponsor me, generic.
I won't make any money from telling you guys that that's the good stuff. It's much better than the, what is that? The Garden of Life. I had that for a while, or Nature's Garden. That stuff tasted like really fake to me. I couldn't put like enough, like,
again, like I have to hide, I disguise
I don't
with like
think
700 calories.
I don't think you've been having that gnarly. The gnarly is so good, especially the chocolate one. Has anybody else tried that? I'd love to hear from you. I know a number of my athletes, I've gotten them on the gnarly train.
I've had a lot of my athletes start tracking their protein intake in the log, because a couple of like areas of weakness that I was noticing across the board in my athletes, with the giant caveat that I am not a professional nutritionist in any way, is having them start to like actually track how many calories they're taking in on long runs and track how many grams of protein they're getting in throughout the day. Because I found a lot of people, they were like, oh yeah, I think I'm eating pretty well on my long run. Or like, oh yeah, I get enough protein. Then when I have them actually write it out, they're like, oh snap, I'm actually getting in 70 grams of protein a day and I'm a grown ass man. That's like
Or
a
less.
problem. Or less, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my issue last summer and why I started getting the
Oh yeah, we
stuff,
did,
because like
we did the
getting
same
enough
thing
protein.
for you.
Yeah.
And you were a grown ass man getting like 70 grams of protein a day and feeling like your legs were just like had no power every day.
That's a bit of an
Frequently.
exaggeration, but
I remember you brought it up at least once,
I did,
which is
yeah.
different than every day.
Well, I don't know. I think it takes adjusting, you know, and I think in that context, it's actually really important to note that for a while, I didn't feel like, you know, you get your protein from wherever, right? Like that kind of attitude, like there's plenty of protein, probably overeating protein. There's definitely that like attitude in the
average American does overconsume protein.
Right, exactly. But, you know, for an athlete who's regularly running 80 to 90 miles a week, like I was last summer,
your needs are different.
50 grams of protein a day is probably,
it's hard to eat on accident.
Is what I was told that I needed to eat, and like getting in like 70 or 80 or maybe 100
on like a good day.
Yeah, like after a while, that's just like not enough to recover. So yeah, it's super, super important. I'm just reading the chat box here. Some people have mentioned some of their protein powder preferences.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, the Vega vanilla is pretty solid. That's probably like my second choice if I'm traveling or something and I'm not able to bring mine, I'll go into the grocery store because they always have like the individual packets of the Vega, and that stuff is pretty solid. I have to go with the chocolate though, because I just add that to like the chocolate Ripple. That's the pea protein. They don't have it at our grocery store anymore, which is a bit like, it just crushes me. So I had to switch to the soy milk, but yeah, like that's an easy, like, I feel like that's an easy, like 40 additional grams of protein in like one serving that you can get like after breakfast. You know, you get some 20 grams at breakfast, you've got 40 grams after your run, you know, another 20 to 40 grams at lunch. Then you have another, you know, protein snack or something like that. You know, like for me, that's like, I like cashews or like chips and hummus. And then, you know, a big dinner and you're like up at around 100, if
like
not
balling
more.
out on tofu or tempeh.
Totally. Yeah. And we've kind of discovered in our house that one serving of protein is one package of protein per each of us.
Yeah.
So that's kind
of like we double the serving
where we're at. And I'll like doing that for like the last, you know, since I switched that up last summer, like I rarely have recovery issues anymore, which is pretty awesome. Would definitely recommend that you guys, you know, take 1 or 2 days to just see what your protein intake really is. Like look at how many servings of tofu that are in the package that you need to have to get to the 20 grams that it says like the protein has in it. You know, if you have to eat the whole thing to get 20 grams and you're eating half of it, you're getting 10 grams of protein at dinner. That's not very much protein. You need to be supplementing that with other things like, you know, quinoa, you know, that has a lot of protein, complete protein. Or I don't know, having a little like Vega protein shake after dinner and after your run. You know, I've definitely done that. I'll make my protein milkshakes from time to time. Ben and Jerry's. This could be for me.
He ruins perfectly good Ben and Jerry's with protein powder.
You get it in where you can. If you want to run higher volume and train, you have to get that protein in. This is going to be one of those weeks where I'm going to go to the grocery store right after this and get my Ben and Jerry's and make sure I have my soy chocolate milk.
Why isn't there just like a hype, like athlete ice cream?
How hard can it be, right? Like a paleo branded thing.
Ugh, I don't like that. Just like on principle. Like I'll see like nuts that have a paleo thing on them. And I'm like, I know what you're up to. I see you. I hate it. I hate it. I won't do it. And I'll buy like a different thing of nuts, even if they're identical.
You don't like that marketing?
I don't like it. Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
I'm like anti
Anti-paleo.
Anti-scientifically debunked diet.
Paleo is probably not very good for runners. Let's just say that. Well, we won't go further. It's down there with fasting.
Yeah. Paleo, one step above not eating at all. It's a big endorsement from Microcosm.
No, seriously though, try to eat something before you go on your runs.
Yeah,
even
carbs,
if you're running
even
if you're running in the morning, you know, some of our athletes who don't have as much of an appetite, getting up early, 4 a.m., things like that to do runs. I've definitely got athletes who are in that like early headlamp club.
Yeah.
Just a
shout out
piece
to the
of toast with a little almond butter or something like super light. And then, you know, make sure you really get a good meal in after, you know, with your coffee before you head to work or whatnot. If you're going to go into that run without anything, you're really setting yourself up to be under fueling for the entire day. And that run's going to be a lot harder without, you know, it's hard to assume that everything you had after your last run and for dinner refueled your glycogen stores enough that you're going to be feeling super fresh to go running. It's, you know, especially on a weekend after a long run, it's actually unlikely your glycogen stores will be fully filled. So you really want to pay attention to that stuff. Yeah, cool. Well, we've really just like gone from one topic to another with without any. Yeah.
Protein shakes, underrated, overrated.
Completely underrated. I think every athlete needs to be utilizing that, especially in the running world. It's just too easy, especially if you're plant-based or whatnot. It's just too easy to miss like that protein intake and to just end up like over time, just like gradually recovering poorly and a little bit worse and a little bit worse and a little bit worse. And then like after several months of that, you just start like, oh man, I'm really feeling like crap. Like I can't run uphill anymore and stuff like that. So I would definitely recommend that everybody has something like that in their pantry. I know it's like not the cheapest item to buy. I always like
it's less cheap.
Like,
it's cheaper than getting full on overtraining syndrome or like having systemic inflammation for years and years, or like having to deal with persistent muscular breakdown.
I always find it funny, Zoe, the way that you frame some of these things where you're like, you know, getting that new pair of shoes is totally, you know, better than getting like shin splints. But it's like, yeah, but you still have to pay $160 for that new pair of shoes.
Yeah, dog, but that's less than an MRI.
Of course.
Having to pay for an MRI is hella stressful. And if I had a dime for every time I had an athlete that was like, I was trying to eke out 50 more miles, and then they end up getting a stress reaction, I would have at least one dime. I would have a dime. I would have exactly one dime.
We have seen that. I mean, as I wrote recently, one of the number one causes for lower leg injuries is ultras, and also wearing ultras that are been worn for more than 350 miles.
Yeah.
Like just a joke, but like any shoe that is, you know, worn out, you're much more likely to get hurt.
I get it. Ultras feel so good. Love it. Chase your bliss. However, if you have persistent calf, Achilles, or plantar issue, if you have persistent unless you are healthy every day of your life and you're like so good at stretching, your self-care is dialed, maybe not the correct shoe for you. New Balances, Nike can also feel good and wide. I think the zero drop. Also, Ultra's coming out with a not zero drop shoe.
Why don't we ask our shoe expert, Drew, Coach Drew, if you're falling asleep over there, we're talking shoe. We've come all the way full circle. We're talking shoes now, apparently. But
it's okay. What you guys have said about the whole lower leg issues, any kinds of itises, tendonitis, anything, Achilles, plantar fasciitis, calf, whatever, definitely avoiding lower heel toe differential. At the store that I manage, I teach my employees that if anyone has any sort of lower leg ailment, that we try to keep them at 8 millimeters or higher. A lot of, I guess, more uneducated or they just don't know about shoes. A lot of people think that having a higher heel toe differential makes you weak or makes your body more prone to injury because of some random study that came out that used 6 professional athletes as their case study. Like all that's total bullshit. Just
haven't you read Born to Run?
Yeah, I mean, were you born with shoes? I know it's crazy.
Not natural.
No, y'all are all over it.
I eat paleo and I run paleo, and I am injured all the dang time.
Wow.
Physical fitness.
We're gonna get some hate
that
on
kind of
this
person.
call for sure. Good thing.
I'm just saying.
Well, the paleo community is going to be really after Microcosm.
They're always after.
They're after Trail Runner.
They're always after us for printing hashtag carb truth.
Carb truth, carbs. What's that carb up hashtag? You guys seen that one?
What it is.
That's big in the vegan community.
Carb
for
up.
sure. Carb up. Yeah.
I like it.
Drew, what do you think is the most kind of popular, the thing that I hear the most is I need that wider shoe. I really need a wider shoe. What's kind of that wide toe box option, 8 mil or higher drop?
Man, that's really tough. Like you automatically think of something like an Ultra, which is 0 drop. You start to think about the brand Topo that'll make options from 3 to 6 millimeters of drop. But beyond that, I mean, it just changes. You can't say like one brand. You can't say, well, Asics fit wide or Nike fit wide or Brooks fits wide. It's because every single style is different. And every year, obviously, they come out with new versions, and the new version will be different from the last version. So it's so hard to say. Right now, what we're seeing is any shoe that's got more of that, just a rounded toe instead of a pointed toe, or shoes that have a knit upper. It used to be only like the most premier, nicest shoes on the market had a knit upper, and so they cost more. But what you're seeing is they're so popular that they're starting to put knit uppers on a lot of styles of shoes. So they kind of fit tight on your foot, but because they stretch, it almost feels like you're just wearing a big sock on a midsole. A shoe that I'm running in right now is the Nike Infinity React, and not a Nike fan. Just their shoes, to me, they've always just sucked. But this new shoe that they've got going right now fits my wider foot, and it's because of that knit upper. But it's almost not a shoe. It's just what style or what, I guess, technique is the company using to accommodate different widths of feet, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And really what it sounds like to me is that if you're an athlete who's considering a shoe change, maybe you've had some lower leg issues, they're starting to see a pattern developing there. Go into your local running store, try on a bunch of different options. There's not going to be just like, hey, try that New Balance. It's going to be, check out multiple different types of shoes. The expert in the shoe department of that store can get you on a treadmill. You can kind of feel out how that shoe fits on your foot, how your stride reacts to it and all of that stuff. And then from there, you can start to make a more informed decision about your shoe selection. That's kind of how I would advise somebody on that. But, if there's more refinement to that, Drew, I'd love for you to share it.
No, going in and trying shoes on is obviously the way to do it. I would stay away from listening to online reviews because everyone's foot is different. You get on there like, well, so-and-so said that this shoe sucks. It's like, well, that's so-and-so's foot. So I know that doesn't help you when you're shoe shopping or whatnot, especially a lot of people live in a place where they don't have the opportunity to go into a run shop. So you kind of have to go online and look around. But if anybody ever does have questions about shoes or wants to share a little more about what they're looking for in shoes, I would be more than happy to make any recommendations necessary. Then you can go online and buy or whatever you need to do.
Yeah. Don't wear trail shoes for road runs.
Yeah.
Also.
I think a lot of trail runners have made that mistake before, and over time, it really does affect you.
It'll wear the lugs down. So you're like actually taking life out of your trail shoes, but it's also just like, a rock plate's pretty harsh on your body. If you're running on pavement, it's like the biomechanics are just different. Like wear road shoes for road.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely rather wear road shoes on trail than trail shoes on road.
Yeah.
I want to real quick acknowledge that I see people asking really good questions in the chat, but I only have one hand. I've got a baby right here. And so if you want to ask like on Facebook, or if you want to message or email the Microcosm email, I'll be able to answer your questions through there. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, the very specific question about Hoka, maybe Artyom can send you an email or something like that, because I personally don't know the answer to that question. But yeah, correct toes. What are correct toes? Those are the things that go in between your toes to keep your toes spread. My PT recommends those. She's an amazing PT. She says that they are extremely effective for keeping your fascia kind of loose and your plantar from tightening up. And athletes who have had plantar issues can benefit from those, as well as doing some like different foot strengthening exercises can also help. Yeah.
It's more than just plantar. That's absolutely right. But you think about oftentimes runners wearing shoes that have kind of tighter, more pointed toe boxes. You start to see the distal ends of metatarsals kind of get pushed together, and neuromas can start to form, maybe decreased blood flow. I mean, a whole sort of negative things. And so the correct toes are nice. I know that some products like that are kind of expensive though. In my college days, when I didn't have a whole lot of money, I would like roll up paper towels and like stick them between my toes. You can also get like the little things that people wear when they get their toenails painted, stick those in there, like anything that helps create a little distance between your toes so they can spread out. And then don't wear them for like a half hour the first time. Maybe put it for 5 minutes and then kind of build up time to where you can wear them maybe 15, 20 minutes at a time and then go on with your day.
Yeah. They've definitely been recommended to me before as well. Yeah, it's definitely good tool to have, I would say. But I like those little hacks, Drew, because you definitely don't need to buy the toe spreaders when you can put things between your toes and keep your toes spread apart, and just working on kind of the stretching those toes out, the flexibility there is really important. I think also kind of strengthening your feet is huge, and just there's so many different exercises that you can do for that. Just try to put your foot flat on the floor and keep your pinky toe and your big toe down with your whole foot flat, and raise your 3 other toes. If you can do that, you're in a pretty good spot. That's something that you want to work up to. And then the opposite way, which is putting your 3 middle toes down flat, being able to raise up your pinky toe and your big toe. It's not that easy to do, but those little exercises actually can really help with your foot health.
Yeah. To answer what is similar to a Hoka with a higher drop, New Balance's new fresh foam Trail 2, it's a little bit heavier than it's actually probably about the same weight. It feels heavier to me. It's similar. It's a high cushion, higher drop trail shoe. It's wide-ish, like wider than a Solomon. I also think the new Solomon Ultra Glide is like a super sick, awesome shoe.
That's an 8 mil drop, isn't it?
Most I think it's 6 or 8, yeah. But it's like their first ever cushiony shoe. Really cushiony.
I really like a shoe with cushion. Yeah. Stiff shoes.
I know. I used to be all like, oh, I'm a little baby mountain runner. I need like firm Solomons for precision. And lately I've been in the Speed Goat Evos because it's just like way better to like monster truck, like over stuff.
Yep, totally.
Oh yeah. The North Faces. Actually, oh yeah, the Vective Enduro. I kind of like the Speed Goat better, but yeah. I really like Flight Vective. That's a popular
too. So you mentioned a New Balance trail shoe, the Trail 2, their Hero, new version of the Hero.
Yes.
Can be hard to find, but is a very, very popular shoe for people looking for a lot of cushioning, but something that maybe lasts a little longer than a Hoka.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hokas have a pretty short shelf life, but we have a lot of people who really like the Speed Guard. Really like that shoe.
I know. They just stopped I just found out they're going to stop making for at least a while the Speed Goat Evo, so I just bought like 2 pairs on eBay.
Oh, cool.
I mean, not cool because I love that shoe.
But at least you snagged up a couple extra pairs.
But now I'm like, oh my God, I have to start like rationing.
You do a lot of road runs, so I think those Speed Goats will last for a while.
I know. Yeah. The pair I have right now it was the first pair that like ever came out, and I got them like on a press trip
Nice.
And I didn't like them at first. And then I started really liking them, but they're like 2 years old at this point. They're actually getting to that point where like, if I develop a stress reaction, I'm going to feel like a total idiot. But I'll have something clear to blame it on.
Well, on that note, yeah. Thanks, guys. We have a lot of questions to get into on Friday, 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to that. And
Underrated, overrated?
I think Rapid Fire Friday,
Even more
Coach's
rapid.
Corner.
Yeah.
It's just like right in the middle. It's perfect.
Yeah.
If there is such thing. Well, thanks. I hope everybody has a good week. Please don't run if it's smoky. Rest.
Save your lungs.
Yeah, it's just not worth it. Great opportunity to investigate the consistency.
Or catch
you've
up on
been
Ted
doing.
Lasso.
Yeah. Ooh, we have a new episode to watch. Ooh, I know what I'll be doing tonight. All right. Well, cool. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. We'll see y'all soon. Bye, Drew. Good to see you, man.
Drew Connor is Ted Lasso.
Yeah, he is.